Hello and welcome to Tech Tips. This week from Dirt Tricks, we're going to show you how to do a pretty efficient tire change. To get started, I want to go through the tools necessary. Pretty basic tools most people should have. Valve core remover, get the nice one, steal one off a nice sports car, the steel one. Typically a 13mm open end wrench to handle the rim lock. And then I like to have two tire irons. Motion Pro makes a great tire iron, and Dirt Tricks now is making a packable tire tool. One of each is pretty handy. The larger shop 16-18 inch unit. Get some baby powder. Get a nylon dead blow hammer. Non-marring rubber hammers tend to bounce more. The nylon dead blows are pretty nice. And then get some dish soap with a paintbrush. Put some into a cup or a mug or whatever, paper cup, and you're ready to go. First thing to do is remove the valve core, let the air out, and then secondly, get 13mm wrench on most bikes and loosen up the rim lock. And loosen it adequately so that rim lock is free. You can push it up into the tire. It's nice and free. Place the wheel on the ground, and we need to break the beads, both sides of the rim. I like to put the sprocket side down first because it's tougher. It's usually the hardest one to break. And then once that's done, flip it over and do the rotor side. Okay, next get the wheel back up on the workbench. Couple little tricks. It's really critical in getting a tire off is to make sure that bead is pushed down in as many places as you can. I like to work from the opposite side, so I pull the tire back to me, and as you're putting that longer tire tool in the bead, work the opposing side, the side close to you. Push that bead down into the rim, and then slowly, as you get the first bead up, you're kind of home free, and then you can use the smaller tool or whatever's handy and start removing the bead all the way around. Take small bites. Make sure you don't get in so far that you're up against your tube. And you're on your way. This next procedure is probably different than a lot of you have seen, but I like to, after I've got that first bead broke up on the bench, take the wheel and tire back to the ground. Leave the tube in it. Now make sure that remaining bead is free from the rim, and then take the longer tire tool and pry all the way across both sides of the rim so it's sticking all the way through. Knocking that bead loose, make sure that bead is pushed up into the rim on the opposing side, 180 degrees around. And then one quick pry move, go all the way up and over. Now take that mallet. Don't use a steel hammer here, you will make a big mess of your rims. Soft mallet, rubber works, but these dead blows, buy them in Harbor Freight for 10 bucks. Dead blow works really well. A couple quick blows, you've got that knocked off, and I still haven't used any soap. We'll get to that later. And we are free. We're free from, we got the tube coming up out of there, and we're ready to go to the next step. Okay, back to the workbench. Get that tube pulled out of there and make sure it's cleaned up. Some of these tubes tend to get, especially the Ultra tubes, the Bridgestone Ultra tube is my all-time favorite. Very hard to pinch. They get a lot of rubber buildup on them, and clean that rubber off the best you can. Check the tape around the spoke tube protector. Get your brand new tire. Get, like I'm showing, I've got the rotor side up, and there's some strategy to this. So on the large hooked side, the large U-shaped side of that tire tool, just go across both beads. You're just going to start pulling across both beads and working that, trying to get that first bead down. Once that first bead is down, things go pretty quickly. Okay, now take your cleaned up inner tube, and I like to put the valve core actually in at this time, and so that it'll maintain a little bit of air. It's actually easier to work with a little bit of air in it. Start stuffing that tube in. Get it in the ballpark of where the valve stem hole is for your rim. They're real easy to spin a little later here. So get the tube tucked in nicely with a little bit of air in it into the new tire. Once that tube is in, line it up with the valve core. At that point, you can spin the tire. It's all free at this point. Your bead shouldn't be pushed up against anything, and you can rotate that tire and get the tube and tire lined up. Okay, once you've got your valve core in the right orientation, got it lined up in the ballpark, now take the shorter tire tool over onto the sprocket side, and this is a little trick I've developed. Knock that bead down and just pry that bead on the sprocket side. Pry it and put your tool underneath the sprocket. It'll hold it right there and you won't have to touch it. Now flip the wheel over. Here's the next little trick. 2 pieces of 1-inch PVC. This is a knuckle saver. On either side of where the valve core is, slide those. A couple sockets will work too, but out in the trail in your fanny pack you can throw these in. Now I can very easily get my fingers in there to put the valve core in. This becomes kind of the biggest issue with putting on a tire, is getting that valve stem back through the rim. And by putting the tire tool on the back side, hooking it in, it pulls that bead away from you. And then the little trick with the 2 PVC pieces gives you lots of room. You won't have bloody knuckles when you're done. And now we are ready to seat that final bead, get that put on. This is pretty quick. Kind of follow the same procedure. I like to get started with one tool, come in with a second tool. Once you've got about, I don't know, 1/4 of the tire around, that first tool is not even necessary anymore. A little bit of soap following this point will be helpful in seating the bead, and I'll show you that procedure. That tool can pretty much go away, and at this point one tool will put the bead on the rest of the way. As you get further around, you have to make sure that far side bead is pushed back into the rim so you create some space. There we have it. Our tire's on. All we have to do now is inflate. And before inflating, I like to soap up the beads, because fresh rubber on a clean rim, it can take 100 psi, which is probably not even advisable, take a lot of pressure to seat those beads. And so I like to soap both beads, both sides, and then inflate, and you can watch both sides for that bead to seat all the way around. Usually with a soapy tire like this, about 40 psi, those beads should be there. Once both beads, both sides are seated, then I like to tighten my rim lock at that point. You got a lot of pressure in the tube pushing that rim lock tight, and so I like to actually do my rim lock, that 13mm nut, tighten that thing down snug. Don't over tighten, those things do break. Tighten down the rim lock, and then the final procedure is just get the tire. You're gonna have to let a bunch of air out, and set your tire pressure where you like to run. For most of what we do, most of our riding conditions, 10 to 12 psi on a rear tire actually works very, very well. The only time you need higher pressures is when you are at very high speeds in rocky conditions, but this system actually works very, very well.